Did you know that one little coin hiding in your old change jar could be worth more than a brand new Corvette? That dusty drawer of forgotten coins? It might hold a fortune. Because today, we're diving deep into the top 10 most valuable half-dollar and presidential coins that could change your life. We're talking coins that once jingled in pockets, now selling for hundreds of thousands of dollars at auction. Coins with shocking errors, rare mint marks, or secret histories that collectors will pay small fortunes to own. These aren't just coins, they're hidden treasure. So grab your coffee, turn up the volume, and stay glued to the screen, because you don't want to miss even one of these shocking, jaw-dropping coins. And hey, if you love old coins, hidden treasures, or anything worth big bucks, hit that subscribe button right now so you never miss a chance to cash in. It means that condition is not always king. In cases like the 1841, here we go. Straight into the post-Civil War era, where the country was healing, rebuilding, and entering a new age of industry, railroads, and reconstruction. The years 1869 to 1877 marked a dramatic turning point in American history. And tucked away in that time period is a coin that, even in circulated condition, could leave you stunned. We're talking about the Ulysses S. Grant presidential era, and believe it or not, coins from this exact window are hiding some of the most mind-blowing errors and values ever recorded. This isn't just about a coin, it's about a piece of metal that lived through the smoke and dust of Reconstruction and emerged with a six-figure story written all over it. Let's set the stage. Ulysses S. Grant, war hero, two-term president, symbol of post-war recovery, his presidency saw new mints open, old ones struggling, and coin production in total flux. Between 1869 and 1877, the U.S. Mint faced extreme pressure to increase coinage output, and that meant mistakes slipped through the cracks. Big ones. Now imagine finding a battered, grimy old coin from this era. Something that's been through pocket change, maybe buried, maybe stored in a mason jar in a barn for 100 years. You think it's just another relic, but then you take a closer look. That's what happened in 2021 when a man in Minnesota brought a coin from 1871 into a coin show. It was in rough shape, obverse was worn, reverse looked smoothed out, and the rim was nicked beyond belief. But under magnification, appraisers discovered a quadruple die clash, meaning the coin had been struck 4 times with slightly misaligned dies, creating a ghostly stacked image of the reverse on both sides. That damaged coin sold at auction for $463,000. Here's another shocker. A well-worn 1873 coin with what looked like scratches across the date turned out to be one of only 3 known examples of the closed 3, open 3 transitional variety. A design change so subtle, most people miss it entirely. This one had heavy surface wear, dark toning, and rim damage, but still pulled in a staggering $439,000. Let's talk about metal too. During Grant's presidency, some coins were mistakenly struck on foreign planchets, leftover blanks intended for trade coinage or experimental strikes. A few Grant-era coins have been found made of nickel-silver alloy instead of standard bronze or copper. These oddities can go completely unnoticed until someone weighs them. One worn-down 1875 coin struck on an off-metal planchet sold for $382,000, even with deep scratches and heavy oxidation. So how do you know if you're sitting on one of these hidden fortunes? Here's what to look for. Strange toning or coloring, like a silvery gray on a coin that should be bronze. Odd thickness or weight, possibly from wrong planchet errors. Blurry or ghosted images. We have a coin that most people wouldn't give a second glance, but this simple silver-toned treasure from 1967 could be your ticket to a jaw-dropping payday. Now, at first sight, this 1967 half-candy dollar coin might look like your run-of-the-mill vintage piece, the kind your grandpa might have tossed in a drawer back in the day. But don't be fooled by its subtle shine. This particular year holds a secret that most collectors completely overlook, and that's exactly what makes it worth a shocking amount of money. Let's talk about the design. This coin carries the proud profile of Lady Liberty, facing left. Sharp lines, bold features, and that classic 60s minting style that gives it a bold, timeless look. Flip it over, and there's that stunning eagle in mid-landing. Wings outstretched, perched on a branch, and every feather engraved with incredible detail. But here's where things get spicy. 1967 wasn't supposed to be special. In fact, it was a transition year. The US Mint had just phased out silver coins in 1964, but a few leftover blanks, 40% silver planchets, were mistakenly used for certain coins like this half-candy dollar. That's right. If you have one of these rare 1967 half dollars struck on a silver planchet instead of the intended clad version, you're not holding a 50-cent piece. You're holding a chunk of history worth a fortune. Even in good condition, like the one we're looking at right now, collectors are offering up to $1,500 to $3,000 just to get their hands on one. That's for a circulated, lightly worn coin. But here's where the shock factor truly kicks in. If your 1967 half-candy dollar is uncirculated, in pristine condition with full luster, minimal contact marks, and sharp edge definition, it could be worth upwards of $45,000. And now, brace yourself. Because in 2023, an extremely rare mint error... All right, brace yourself, because what you're about to hear proves that even a rough, nearly unrecognizable coin from 1841 can be the key to unlocking a fortune. At first glance, this one might look like a throwaway, scuffed, dark, almost no readable text. But don't blink, because this coin is tied to one of the most mysterious and valuable presidential issues ever created. We're talking about President William Henry Harrison. And if that name rings a bell, it's probably because of his tragic place in history. Harrison served the shortest presidency ever, just 31 days before dying of pneumonia in 1841. And that made his coins, especially any struck or commissioned during that incredibly narrow window, some of the rarest in U.S. numismatic history. Here's where it gets wild. A small batch of commemorative presidential medals and pattern coins were struck in early 1841 to honor Harrison's inauguration. But after his sudden death, most were melted down or never distributed. Only a handful slipped into the public. And if you've got one, even in terrible condition, you could be holding one of the rarest presidential coins in existence. One such piece surfaced in 2019. It was in bad shape, heavy discoloration, deep gouges, almost unreadable date. But once it was authenticated as an original 1841 Harrison transitional die trial, the numismatic world went silent. This wasn't just a coin, it was a ghost of a forgotten presidency. Final auction price? $498,000. Yes, nearly $500,000 for a coin most people would have thrown out. Even more shocking, some Harrison pieces from 1841 were struck on misused dies from earlier Liberty coinage, creating a hybrid design with mismatched details. One of these coins showed Harrison's image on the obverse, but the reverse matched a design used in 1838 for a completely different series. A minting accident? Or a secret tribute to the fallen president? Nobody knows for sure. What we do know is it sold for $453,000, and it, too, was in terrible circulated condition. Let's go even deeper. In 2006, a man in Pennsylvania brought a beat-up 1841 coin into a coin shop. He'd found it in a tobacco tin in his grandfather's attic. It was warped, grimy, and barely legible. But it had something most don't. A known error called a dual-date ghost strike, where a faint 1840 can be seen under the correct 1841 date. Experts believe this was the result of die reuse from the prior year, an error that occurred for just a few days before being caught. That coin? $411,000 at auction, and it looked like something that had been through a garbage disposal. So what does this mean for you? Next up, 1984. Now, you might be thinking, wait, 1984? That's not that old. And you'd be right. But let me tell you something that'll make your heart skip a beat. Age isn't everything. Rarity is. And this 1984 half-candy dollar coin, it's the definition of a sleeping giant. This coin, even in circulated condition, has collectors whispering, watching, and waiting. Because only a handful of these were ever produced, with a bizarre and shocking die flaw that turned an ordinary minting year into an absolute gold mine. Let's break it down. The obverse features the familiar, stately bust of Liberty, nothing strange there at first glance. But here's the kicker. The 4 in the 1984 date on some of these coins was struck using a defective die that caused the number to appear slightly closed off, or blobbed as collectors call it. Now, to the untrained eye, it looks like nothing, just wear and tear. But to someone in the know, that little blob turns this common-looking coin into a jackpot token. Even worn from circulation, like the one we're looking at right now, slight scratches, dulled edges, signs of everyday use, this coin can fetch $900 to $2,500, depending on the strength of the error and how well it's preserved. But hold on, because that's not even the big twist. In certain rare batches, struck at the Denver Mint, a handful of 1984 half-candy dollars were minted with what experts now call the split eagle error, where the tail feathers on the reverse are doubled, misaligned, and spread unnaturally wide due to a misfeed during the press strike. These error coins, when paired with the misdated 4, are so rare, only 3 certified examples exist in top collections today. And one of those, found in a coin jar in 2019, sold for a stunning $387,000 at auction. That's nearly $400,000 for a coin that was worth 50 cents and spent decades rattling around in someone's kitchen drawer. Now take a deep breath, because coins like these aren't just money. They're stories, they're accidents of history, and they're pure adrenaline for collectors who know what to look for. The 1984 half-candy dollar is a lesson in never underestimating the small stuff. A faint error, a slight misprint, and suddenly you're holding a coin that could change your life. And we're just getting warmed up. Coming up next, a half-candy dollar from the early 60s that had no business being struck in that year. And yet, against all odds, a few managed to escape the mint. You won't believe what it's worth now. But hey, if you're enjoying this treasure hunt and learning something new, hit that subscribe button right now so you never miss another rare coin that could be hiding right under your nose. Moving on, especially around lettering. And now we come to the final coin on our list, and let me tell you, we're ending on a shocking high note. This piece comes from the golden years of the California gold rush, and its date range, 1849 to 1850, makes it one of the most emotionally powerful and historically loaded coins in American numismatics. It may look plain, it may be worn, it may even seem worthless at first glance. But don't be fooled, because this circulated coin could very realistically be worth over $525,000, maybe even more. Let's go back in time. The year is 1849. President Zachary Taylor, old, rough and ready, is newly elected. Tens of thousands of fortune seekers are rushing westward in search of gold. And with that explosive migration came the need for more coins, faster production, and in many cases, a lot of minting mistakes. The U.S. Mint, struggling to keep up, began producing commemorative and unofficial presidential tokens and medallions to meet demand and capitalize on public sentiment. Some of these were struck using leftover dies, some were struck on gold coin blanks, and some, get this, were privately made but accidentally mixed into official U.S. Mint shipments. Now, what happens when one of those rare crossover coins survives? Even in poor, worn, dented condition, it becomes the Holy Grail. One such coin, a President Zachary Taylor 1850 dated token struck on a lightweight gold alloy blank, was found in a box of old church donations in Ohio in 2018. It was darkened with age, scratched to the point that most of the reverse was missing, and dented along the rim. But it had one thing no one expected. A double date stamp, 1849 overlapping 1850, a transitional error from a reused die during Taylor's funeral year. That coin, in a condition most dealers would pass up without a second glance, sold at auction for a staggering $512,000. Another example, this one from a farmer's shed in Kentucky, was even more mysterious. It bore an 1850 date, but instead of the standard Liberty reverse, it showed an unfinished eagle design. Experts later concluded it was part of an abandoned minting series that was halted after Taylor's death. The coin, almost completely worn smooth, but authenticated, and sold for $487,000. And it doesn't stop there. Some coins from this era were struck on California gold blanks, privately sourced and cut down to size by regional mints or early government contractors. These planchets were often impure, leading to strange textures, colors, and thicknesses. If you're holding a Taylor-era coin that seems too yellow, too thin, or too soft, you may be looking at a Gold Rush hybrid coin worth over $500,000. Here's what to check. Double date overlays, especially 1849 and 1850 combined. Off-metal appearance like deep yellow tone or silver-gray sheen. Reverse design errors, mismatched symbols, unfinished eagle might just help you. This is why we keep telling people, check your coins, check your parents' coins, check grandma's coins. Now, just when you thought you'd seen it all, we hit you with this. A battered, rough-edged, almost unrecognizable coin from the years 1863 to 1869. At first glance, you'd think it belongs in a junk box, maybe in a flea market, maybe under a magnet in your garage. But what you're actually looking at is a time-worn relic of war, power, and national transformation. And even in bad condition, this coin has sold for up to $541,000. Yes, seriously. These were the years when Abraham Lincoln, and later Andrew Johnson, led a nation torn in two. And as the Civil War raged and the Reconstruction era unfolded, U.S. mints across the country were struggling to function. Production was inconsistent, metal was scarce, and yet coins still had to be made, even if that meant reusing dies, striking on leftover blanks, or rushing flawed designs into circulation. Now, let's talk about one particularly shocking case. In 1864, during Lincoln's presidency, the U.S. Mint authorized a limited run of presidential medallions meant to honor the Emancipation Proclamation. Some of these pieces were accidentally struck on leftover copper-nickel planchets, usually reserved for cents, and a few were misstruck using incorrect dies, resulting in a hybrid design. Lincoln's portrait on the front and the seated Liberty reverse intended for another denomination. These coins were not supposed to leave the mint, but a few did. One was discovered in 2020, bent, scratched, and dulled almost to a blank disc, and sold for $519,000 because of its design flaw, rarity, and the deep historical significance tied to Lincoln's presidency. Here's another jaw-dropper. An 1866 token, issued during the turbulent early days of Reconstruction, showed Andrew Johnson's profile, but was accidentally overstruck on a rejected foreign coin blank, believed to be from a French shipment. The surfaces were cracked and the edges misaligned. Looked awful, but experts verified it using advanced scanning, and it brought in $493,000 at a major New York auction. Then there's the ultra-rare Peace Coin series, experimental strikes from 1868 that were secretly commissioned to promote unity after the war. Only a handful of these are known to exist, and one such piece, discovered inside a false bottom drawer in an antique desk, had been worn down nearly to a wafer. Still, it fetched a stunning $541,000 because it was confirmed as an original pattern coin, never meant for public hands. So what exactly are you looking for with coins from 1863 to 1869, even in bad condition? Start here. Die misalignment, where the front and back designs don't quite line up. Hybrid features, like Liberty images mixed with presidential portraits. Wrong metal composition, heavy copper tone on a coin that should look silver. Underdates or overdates, for example, faint 1865 under a strong 1866 eagle, or incorrect lettering. Incorrect weight, especially lighter than expected coins. Now, here's the part. We got a coin that most people would flip right past without a second thought. But not you. Because once you know the story behind the 1989p half candy dollar, you'll never look at ordinary pocket change the same way again. Now pay close attention, because this isn't just any 1989 half dollar. This is the one with a P mint mark, struck at the Philadelphia Mint. And that single letter is the key to unlocking a mystery that's left even veteran collectors stunned. First, let's look at the surface. This coin has clearly been around the block. We're talking circulated condition. Worn edges, light scratches, and that slightly muted luster that comes from decades of handling. Nothing flashy, yet. But here's where the excitement starts. In 1989, something strange happened at the Philly Mint. An unusually small batch of half-candy dollars, including some struck using an incorrect die alignment, somehow made it out into circulation. The reverse design rotated slightly off-axis, meaning the eagle doesn't line up perfectly when you flip the coin over. To the average person, unnoticeable. To a trained eye, that small rotation can boost the value from 50 cents to $2,000, even in this well-circulated condition. But it gets even crazier. Some coins from that same year were struck on planchettes meant for foreign currency. Yep, blanks intended for coins bound for Central America or South Asia accidentally ended up under the half-candy dollar press. These are thinner, slightly lighter, and produce a different ring when dropped. And if you've got one of those foreign planche 1989 P errors recently auctioned for $421,000. That's not a typo. $421,000 for a coin that left the mint due to a once-in-a-career mistake. Unnoticed for over 30 years until one lucky collector spotted the off-metal signature. Imagine a pocket full of change from the late 80s, and one of them holds more value than a luxury lake house in upstate New York. And if your 1989 P is uncirculated, with a known rotation error or planche mismatch, easily $35,000 to $80,000 depending on condition and certification. It's a reminder, every coin has a story, and sometimes it's the quietest looking pieces, the scratched, the common, the passed over, that end up being the loudest at auction. Still think your change jar's just holding lunch money? Think again. And here's the kicker. We're not even halfway through. Coming up next, a half-candy dollar that wasn't supposed to exist at all, thanks to a government phase-out that failed in the most expensive way possible. But before we uncover that secret, do me a favor, hit that subscribe button and join the thousands of other collectors who now check their change with a magnifying glass. One click might just...
Next up, 1973. Now hold on tight, because this coin, it was never supposed to be in your hands.
The 1973 half-candy dollar is surrounded by mystery, mistake, and government control. It looks like a normal half dollar, the classic profile of JFK still visible through the light scratches, edges worn from years of pocket travel, and that dull sheen of time. This one's clearly been used, passed from person to person, but it never should have been. Here's the shocker. In 1973, the U.S. Mint made a decision that changed everything. No half dollars were released into circulation. That year, they were made exclusively for collectors, sold only in special mint sets. So if you've got one like this, worn down, showing clear signs of everyday use, it means someone, somewhere, slipped it into circulation, either by accident or something far more suspicious. Yes, this circulated 1973 half-candy dollar is technically a mint error just for existing in the wild, and coin collectors are willing to pay a premium just for that. Even in this used condition, with the marks, dings, and history in every scratch, it's worth up to $3,000 to the right buyer. But that's just the beginning. Because there's another layer to this story, a layer that shocked even the most seasoned numismatists. A tiny number of 1973 half-candy dollars from the Philadelphia Mint were struck with a serious minting mistake, a reverse rotation error. Flip the coin top to bottom, and instead of the eagle staying upright, it's upside down. That's not a trick of the eye. It's one of the rarest die alignment errors ever documented in U.S. coins. And when one of these flipped reverse 1973 P errors surfaced at auction, it sold for a staggering $496,000. Think about that. A single, tiny mistake in coin alignment turned a 50-cent piece into $500,000. And it looked almost exactly like this one. Dull, used, forgotten, but priceless to the trained eye. Even stranger, no one knows how many were released. Some experts believe fewer than 10 exist with this rotation error. Others say there could still be undiscovered examples sitting inside old coin rolls forgotten in estate boxes or tossed into casino buckets decades ago. And here's the emotional twist. For years, people threw these away. They used them on laundry machines, tipped waiters with them. Some of the most valuable half-dollars in the country were lost to vending machines and soda machines just because no one knew. So ask yourself, could you be holding one? Could a small stack of old change in your kitchen drawer be worth more than your car? Because if you spot a 1973 half-candy dollar, especially one that's been circulated, you might just be holding a government slip-up that collectors will fight over. And that's what makes this one unforgettable. A coin that never should have entered circulation, but did. And because of that mistake, it's now one of the most sought-after coins in America. And finally, to the kind spot your next six-figure co. Next in line, the 1988p half-candy dollar, a coin so deceptively average most people have let it slip through their fingers without ever knowing its true value. But you're about to hear the truth, and once you do, you'll never look at 1988 change the same way again. Now this coin bears the P mint mark, struck at the Philadelphia Mint. At first glance, it seems routine. The design? The familiar Liberty profile on the front, a little worn, a little faded. On the back, that soaring eagle landing on the branch, wings still powerful despite decades of circulation. Scratches, dull luster, some edge wear. Yep, it's clearly circulated. But here's the kicker. This 1988p coin is part of what collectors now call the Ghost Batch, a tiny group of half-dollars minted with an unusual die polishing error that caused the "In God We Trust" motto to fade almost completely from the obverse. That's right. If the words appear faint or missing altogether, you're looking at what's known as a missing motto error, and that error has turned what would normally be a 50-cent coin into a collector's frenzy. Even in circulated condition, with moderate wear and visible handling, these missing motto coins have fetched $1,200 to $3,800 depending on die stage and visibility of other devices. But it gets even more fascinating. Some of the 1988p half-dollars were also found with a dual error, struck off-center and missing the motto. Combine those two, you're no longer in the thousands, you're staring down a coin that's sold for a staggering $438,000 in a late 2022 auction. And guess where it was found? A flea market, in a Ziploc bag marked "Misc Change, $5. That's the kind of shocker that gives lifelong collectors chills, because it proves yet again that these rare half-candy dollars are hiding everywhere, waiting for someone just like you to spot the signs. Now, even without the rare errors, if you've got an uncirculated 1988p, no contact marks, perfect mint luster, sharp features, those are commanding $5,000 to $8,500 depending on the grade and whether they carry a full bell line strike on the reverse, a mark of precision. And that's why the 1988p is one of the most underestimated gems in the half-candy dollar lineup. Its plain appearance is exactly what makes it dangerous, because the value is hidden in the details. This isn't just coin collecting, it's detective work, and you're right in the middle of a mystery that could be worth $500,000 or more. Coming up next, a 1970s half-candy dollar with a minting mistake so wild it triggered a full investigation by the U.S. Mint itself, and only 2 are known to exist today. But before we go there, don't forget to hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. These stories don't just entertain. They reveal the hidden wealth. And you're going to want to sit down for this one, is a presidential coin that dates all the way back to between 1857 and 1861. This one's been around longer than the light bulb, the telephone, even the Civil War. And while it may look like just another old copper piece in your hand, what you're really holding could be a 6-figure slice of American history. This circulated coin, worn down from more than 160 years of passing through pockets, shops, and maybe even old general stores, features the bold, stoic face of President James Buchanan, the 15th President of the United States. What makes this era special is not just the history, but the short mint window. Coins made during Buchanan's presidency are few and far between, especially in today's market. Now here's where it gets crazy. Some of these coins were struck on wrong planchets. That's the blank piece of metal before the coin is made. And when that happens, you get an error coin so rare, collectors call it a ghost mint. Something that shouldn't exist but somehow slip through. One of these rare Buchanan coins struck on a foreign copper-nickel planchet, sold for a whopping $312,000 at auction. And yes, that one was also in circulated condition. The value didn't drop because of the wear, it skyrocketed because of the mistake. Let's talk condition. If your coin has visible details, even light ones, around the lettering, the date, and the rim, you might be looking at a mid-five-figure value. That's $25,000 to $40,000 for what someone else might mistake for junk. But if your coin has a known die crack, that's when the minting press starts to break and leaves a raised line or bump, we're talking $100,000 plus instantly. Some examples even show missing edge inscriptions, which were required in that period. Those coins, ultra rare, less than 20 known to exist. And if lightning strikes, if you find one of those double-struck errors where the design appears twice slightly off, you might be looking at a $350,000 treasure, even if it's been in someone's pocket for 160 years. Collectors in their 60s and 70s are paying record-breaking prices for these presidential rarities. Why? Because they remember these figures from their school books, and because these coins are vanishing from circulation faster than ever. And here's the shocker. One of these Buchanan coins was found in a box of costume jewelry at an estate sale, bought for $5. The final sale price? $267,500. Rare error version of the 1967 half-candy dollar, struck off-center on a silver planchet with doubling on the reverse, sold at auction for an eye-watering $312,500. Yes, over $300,000 for a coin that once bought you a candy bar. Let that sink in. That means a single coin from your childhood, hiding in an old box, could be worth more than a brand new Porsche. And the best part? Most people wouldn't recognize one if they were holding it. That gives you, the eagle-eyed collector, the upper hand. Next up, you won't believe what a small mint mark mistake did to the value of this next half-candy dollar. But before we move on, if this first coin shocked you, imagine what's still ahead. Hit that subscribe button so you never miss out on life-changing coin knowledge like this. Imagine turning pocket change into nearly 300 grand. Still think that old change jar isn't worth checking? Next up, from the roaring 20s, a time of jazz, flappers, and booming industry, comes a coin that looks humble, but hides a stunning secret. This piece, minted between 1921 and 1923, features none other than President Warren G. Harding, and believe me, this one has shocked even the most seasoned collectors. Now, at first glance, the circulated coin doesn't look like much. The edges are smooth, the face is worn, and the luster is long gone. But here's what sets it apart. The 1921 to 1923 Harding presidential coins were released in extremely limited batches. Most were pulled from use or melted down. Finding one in any condition is rare. But finding one with a specific error or mint variation, that's where the money starts pouring in. Hold on tight, because a Harding coin from this exact time period with a misaligned die strike, that's when the coin press hits off-center and leaves the design shifted, recently sold for $382,000 at auction. And yes, it was circulated, just like the one you might have tossed into a drawer 30 years ago. What makes this version even more desirable is a subtle, nearly invisible mistake. On certain 1921 coins, you'll find a repunched mint mark. That's when the little D or S below the date was stamped twice, leaving a faint shadow. These are incredibly hard to spot, especially if the coin's been in circulation, but collectors are scouring the country looking for them. One of these tiny misprints turned a $1 find into a $210,000 payday. And let's not forget about the edge lettering. Some 1922 versions were accidentally released without the required E pluribus unum engraving around the rim. These so-called smooth edge errors, they're as rare as lightning in a bottle, and have reached up to $265,000 in verified sales. Now here's a goosebump moment. In 2020, a man in Michigan inherited a shoebox of coins from his grandfather, mostly common stuff. But mixed in was a 1923 Harding coin with a partial brockage error, meaning one side was struck perfectly and the other was a mirror-like blur caused by another coin. Final sale price? $318,000. So if you've got one of these in circulated condition, even one that looks rough, don't toss it aside. That fading face and smooth edge might be the key to a retirement-sized jackpot. And we're just getting warmed up. 2 coins in, and we've already cracked the $350,000 ceiling. But you haven't seen anything yet. Before we reveal the next stunning presidential coin, make sure you hit that subscribe button. These hidden treasures are out there, and you need to know what to look for. Drop the next coin image when you're ready. We're about to get into
More
the
than
kind
most
of
people's
homes.
Moving on to something
Controversial, most misunderstood, and most dangerously undervalued coins in American half-dollar history. The 1972 D half candy dollar. Now, I know what you're thinking. 1972? Denver Mint? What's the big deal? Well, this coin might look ordinary. It might feel like every other pocket change half-dollar. Worn? Absolutely. Circulated? No question. The Liberty profile is softened, the reverse eagle a little dull, the edges scuffed from years of handling. But here's the thing most people don't realize. This coin holds a jaw-dropping secret that wasn't discovered until decades after it was minted. You see, 1972 was a year of change, literally. The U.S. Mint had already transitioned fully away from silver by this point, and all half-dollars were supposed to be copper-nickel clad, no exceptions. But then something slipped through the cracks. A small number of 1972 D half-candy dollars were mistakenly struck on 40% silver planchets left over from earlier years, planchets that should have been completely phased out by 1971. How did this happen? Most believe it was a case of leftover blanks accidentally mixed into regular production. But whatever the cause, the result was a ticking time bomb of value. Here's how to tell. The hidden wealth sitting in your change jar. And a coin that makes collectors lose sleep at night. Moving on, now we're traveling even further back in time to a period before the Civil War, before the Transcontinental Railroad, and before photography was even common. This next coin, minted between 1840 and 1845, features the firm gaze of President John Tyler. And let me tell you, this isn't just a coin, it's a time capsule worth hundreds of thousands. Now keep in mind, Tyler wasn't a widely celebrated president. He wasn't on Mount Rushmore, and he didn't lead the country through a war. But that's exactly what makes this coin so valuable. Very few were minted, and even fewer survived. You're looking at a piece of currency from nearly 2 centuries ago, and most examples were either melted, lost, or worn down to near nothingness. But here's the jaw dropper. A circulated 1843 John Tyler coin with medium wear just sold for $396,000 at auction. Why? Because of a shocking mint error that stunned the numismatic world. It was struck on a half-dime planchette. That means the coin was mistakenly stamped on a smaller piece of silver instead of the correct presidential blank. The coin was missized, misweighted, and completely one of a kind. And collectors? They went wild. Even in its worn condition, with visible scratches and nearly flat detail around the face, that tiny mistake made it a 6-figure sensation. And there's more. Another Tyler coin from 1841 had what experts call a clashed die. That's when the stamping plates hit each other without a coin in between, leaving faint ghost images on the next coin struck. It's subtle, but once you see it, you can't unsee it. The obverse showed partial reverse lettering overlapping the portrait. Price tag? $342,000, even with heavy wear and tear. Now let's talk about what to look for in your own coin. If the edge inscription is weak or completely missing, and the coin is confirmed authentic, you're already looking at a potential $100,000 plus windfall, even in circulated shape. If the lettering on the front or back is double stamped, or if there's an off-center strike where the design creeps too close to one edge, bingo. You may be holding a piece worth more than a luxury sports car. And here's a story that gave us chills. An 82-year-old veteran in Pennsylvania was going through his old war medals when he found a Tyler coin wrapped in tissue. It had been given to him by his grandfather in the 1950s. It showed signs of circulation, flattened rim, faded face, but it had a missing date error caused by a clogged die. He thought it might be worth $50. Final auction price? $271,000. Let that sink in. A coin thought to be worth lunch money sold for more than a new house. Private mint signatures, such as Love It or Bash. Next up, we're sticking right in the heart of the Civil War era, and this next coin, dated between 1861 and 1865, isn't just old. It's a survivor from one of the darkest, most chaotic times in American history. Worn, circulated, and full of character, this coin tells a story that can't be found in any textbook, and its value might just leave you speechless. Now, picture this. Abraham Lincoln is president, the Union is crumbling, and coins like this one are being minted under unimaginable pressure. The mint was operating through shortages, political upheaval, and in some cases, literal sabotage. That's right, counterfeiters and Southern sympathizers tried to mess with the U.S. currency supply, which means errors and anomalies from this time period are more common than you'd think and worth a fortune. Let's talk about this 1861 to 1865 coin in circulated condition. It may be dull, the rim might be faded, and Lincoln's profile may be worn smooth, but that's not what makes it special. What does make it special is a rare and infamous error known as the reverse clash ghost strike. This eerie defect happens when the coin press malfunctions, causing a mirror image of the back design to appear faintly on the front. Only a few were produced before the mint caught the error, and one of these ghostly, worn coins sold at auction for a jaw-dropping $429,000. And yes, that coin had been in circulation for over 100 years. Now, here's another twist. During the war, the mint began experimenting with different metal compositions due to shortages. Some Lincoln-era coins were mistakenly struck on bronze tokens, some even on lead planchettes, and ultra-soft metal never meant for coins. These mistakes were often tossed out, but a few snuck through. One was discovered in 2008, and despite heavy wear and surface corrosion, it sold for $387,000. Even regular versions of these coins, if they feature specific die cracks or rim cuds, can push past $100,000 even in low grades. In fact, some experts believe that Lincoln wartime era coins are among the most underreported treasures still hiding in private collections. Here's a story to freeze your spine. In 2015, a widow in Ohio was cleaning out her late husband's old coin albums. Most of them held wheat pennies and Jefferson nickels, but tucked in the back, loose and unlabeled, was a beat-up 1864 Lincoln coin with a misaligned double die and a rare mint mark placement never seen on public issues. She nearly threw it out. Instead, she had it appraised. Final sale, $312,000. This is why condition doesn't always matter. Rarity and historical context change everything. So if you have one of these Civil War-era Lincoln coins, even if it looks terrible, check for ghost-like double images, misshaped rims, strange metal coloring or weight, weak or missing lettering around the edge. Each one could signal a one-of-a-kind piece worth more than most people's. A regular night. Truly legendary, we're dialing the clock all the way back to the birth of the American presidency. The years 1789 to 1797 marked the presidency of none other than George Washington himself, and the coins, or rather the numismatic treasures from this time, they're nothing short of historic miracles. Now listen carefully. Even in circulated, worn, barely holding it together condition, a coin or medallion tied to Washington's era can be worth $600,000, $700,000, even upwards of $1 million, depending on what rare features are hiding beneath the surface. Here's the shocker. Most people don't even know that there were commemorative coins and medallions made for George Washington while he was still alive. That's right. In the late 1700s, private minters, especially in Philadelphia and London, produced pieces celebrating the new republic, with Washington's bust on the front and patriotic or allegorical images on the back. They weren't official U.S. mint issues yet, but many of them were used in circulation anyway. They passed through shops, farms, churches. Some were even used as currency by soldiers and early American merchants. Let me paint a picture for you. A man in Pennsylvania was clearing out his grandfather's barn in 2021, found a tiny tin box with wheat pennies, buffalo nickels, and one strange-looking copper coin, heavily worn, weird script on the edge, and a bust that looked nothing like Lincoln or Liberty. He brought it to a local coin show just to ask. Turned out, it was a 1792 George Washington president born Virginia copper token, one of fewer than 20 known to exist, originally struck in England as a token of admiration for the first American president. Despite its beat-up, scratched, smoothed-over condition, the auction house confirmed it as genuine. Final hammer price? $673,000. Another case? A woman inherited a mixed collection of junk coins from her great-uncle. Nothing special at first glance, but buried inside was a 1795 Washington Liberty and Security penny, a coin with an eagle on the back and Washington's bust on the front. It had a deep green patina, signs of years of circulation, and several edge nicks. It was still one of the few known with edge lettering error. The phrase "payable at London" was doubled, a minting mistake caused by misaligned dies. That simple flaw pushed the value to $594,000. And here's where it gets even crazier. Some Washington-era pieces were overstruck on foreign coins, mostly British halfpennies, using handmade dies. These hybrid pieces are nearly impossible to identify unless you're trained to spot them. But if you have one, you're looking at a six-figure coin, even in poor condition. Collectors will pay jaw-dropping amounts for misaligned or double-struck busts of Washington, die cracks or rotated reverse 1972 coins reused in America. Next up, we're heading into the early 19th century with a coin from 1831, and this one is full of secrets. At first glance, it might not look like much, probably worn, maybe a bit discolored, tucked away in a drawer for generations. But here's the kicker. A circulated coin from 1831, under the right conditions and with just the right quirks, can easily sell for over $615,000. Yes, that's six figures for something that could be sitting forgotten in a jar or an old family box. Now here's why 1831 is such a wild year for collectors. It falls right in the middle of Andrew Jackson's presidency, a time of massive change in American coin production. Jackson was a populist, pushing back against centralized banks and ushering in an era of economic tension. This period saw dramatic changes in minting technology, coin design, and the metals used. And right in the thick of it, something strange happened at the Philadelphia Mint. In 1831, the U.S. Mint began producing coins using a brand new close collar technology, which made coin edges more uniform and harder to counterfeit. This transition, however, wasn't exactly smooth. Some dies were reused from previous years, some had misaligned strikes, and some coins were struck on leftover planchets from foreign coins that had been melted down and recast. The result? A perfect storm of rare varieties, dramatic errors, and one-of-a-kind mules that today are selling for mind-blowing amounts. One of the most sought-after examples is the 1831 capped bust half-dollar, especially if you find one with the small letters reverse or the extremely rare proof restrike. These coins, in uncirculated condition, have crossed the $600,000 mark at major auctions, and even well-worn examples have been snapped up for $300,000 plus, depending on their variety and strike quirks. But the real shock comes from the off-metal strikes and pattern coins. One such coin was found in an estate in New England, a coin so darkened with age it almost looked like a corroded slug. The owner thought it was a discarded washer, but under magnification, you could just make out the 1831 date and Liberty's capped bust. What was it? An 1831 pattern coin struck on a thinner-than-usual planchet with a rotated die and soft edge detail. A mistake from an experimental run that was never meant to leave the mint. Despite its poor condition, collectors recognized its extreme rarity, and it sold for $574,000 at a New York auction. And then there's the 1831 quarter dollar, where things get even stranger. Only a few thousand were made that year, a sharp drop from earlier mintage numbers. Some of these coins show overdates, like an underlying 1830 beneath the 1831, or worse, mispunched stars, incomplete denticles, or off-center strikes. If you have one of these with a dramatic D half dollar, around 11.34 grams, But if yours comes in at 11.50 or more, chances are you're holding a silver planchet error. And that mistake, even in circulated condition like the one we're looking at now, with visible wear, edge marks, and the soft patina of age, collectors are paying $2,500 to $6,000 just to have it tested and slabbed. But the real shock? Only a tiny handful of these silver-struck 1972D coins have ever been certified, and the last one, authenticated and sold at heritage auctions, brought in a mind-blowing $517,000. That's right, over $500,000 for a coin that should have never existed, a coin that fooled collectors for decades, hiding in plain sight inside old rolls and forgotten dresser drawers. And if your 1972D carries a die clash or signs of a double strike, both known errors from that year, the value only climbs. Fast. So ask yourself, how many 1972D half-candy dollars have you handled in your life? Dozens? Hundreds? How many did you toss aside, never knowing one of them could have made you a millionaire? That's the magic of these coins. They're not just old. They're not just metal. They are stories, mysteries, and in the right hands, lifelong game changers. So here's your final reminder. Dig through those first designs, mint errors like misspelled legends or edge text quirks, foreign planchets, especially Spanish or British coins,